Adolescence is a pivotal stage of development where almost every individual of this age tried hard to figure out the voluminous changes and inexplicable crises. But most of all, what is more intriguing goes to knowing the self in a farther mile where society is a part of question like who I am, what I am here for. This is something everyone on the array to teenager must understand of. Since this question required enough time, separated education and reliable resources in order to safely get credible and dependable ideas as they towards total self-understanding and self-awareness. The primitive people long ago described adolescence as an individual capable of reproduction and blessed with the various characteristics that it cited as part of its period of change. However, in the Book of Harlech, 1982 stated that the term adolescence comes from the Latin word adolescens, which to grow or to grow to maturity. Erickson's theory of identity confusion. The fifth stage of lifespan is adolescence 13 to 18 years old, depending on the maturational readiness through learning as cited by Harlech 1982 according to Erickson 2013 when he discussed adolescence, identity, and identity confusion as part of changes. According to Harlech 1982, as cited by Erickson 2013, pointed out that identity the adolescent seeks to clarify is who he is, what his role in society is to be. Is he a child or is he an adult? Does he have it him to somebody, husband and father? Can he feel self-confidence in spite of the fact that his race or religious or national background makes him a person some people look down upon? Overall, will be a successful or failure. Part of this identity issue is the position of adolescents. They tend to like more material position like new good-looking outfit, nice house, nice watch in order to look attractive and pleasant to their peers. Through this symbol, they gain power and respect that they thought is important to make them feel good and accepted. Meaning of social development. Social development is response of an individual towards the social being whom he or she is productively in contact with. The Book of Cyrano and Cyrano 1978 cited that social development is the process of learning to conform to group standards, mores, and tradition, and becoming embodied with a sense of oneness, intercommunication, and cooperation. A socially developed adolescent is someone who enjoys the company of others and loves to work with those he or she wants to be with. He or she feels fulfilled if he or she accomplishes the task in company of person who made his or her fulfillment desirable and meaningful. Adolescence as coming of age. This period of life we call adolescents or teenagers is traditionally labeled as coming of age. Changeover or transition where an individual can reach the stage where he or she can vote to the local and national political election, get married, are allowed by law to acquire a property, permitted to travel alone abroad, can acquire a license in order to drive vehicles, and an age where he or she can enroll to college after finishing the senior high school. In most countries, this adolescent stage falls between 16 up to 21 years old, considered entrance to early adulthood that then recognized by law as adult and even permitted to exercise their rights, responsibilities, and participate to full privilege of the land. To note at 18 years old, no one is anymore considered as minor. However, here in the Philippines, most individuals of this age still ask the advice of parents and any significant adults. Whom they know a lot and can be source of wisdom to shed light to their decisions. There are common realistic and collective queries of the adolescent such as first, A. Religion skepticism. In most adolescents, spiritual doubts usually experience. B. Seeking attention from parents. Both parents are working, so adolescents tend to long for care and attention. C. Affiliation and achievement. Any adolescent would want to be a member or part of them, most especially if the team is well known or active participator in the community. D. Peers pressures. Adolescent stage is not complete without the presence of friends from the pool of classmates, neighbor, or any age group. E. Academic struggles. In school, adolescents have many sacrifices in terms of projects and requirements, plus sleepless nights of studying lessons, especially before quizzes and examination days. F. Financial constraints. Some adolescents struggle so hard in budgeting their allowance in boarding houses and even when they reach school. G. Overprotectiveness. The overprotectiveness of parents irritate some of the adolescents hatid sundo from school to home. H. Media. Over-engagement to TV. Cellular phones, computer and internet have affecting factor in adolescent stage. Skills and talent, part of adolescents' insecurities implicates their skills or acquired and talent or inborn capabilities, abilities and potentials. G. Infatuation and crush. This is a period where hearts beat increase and social gathering is unlimited. Key. Diet and nutrition. Food sometimes become a diversion of some adolescents, whether they are emotionally dislodged, and eating can become a form of displacement. L. Physical hygiene. Body odor usually occurs due to endocrine chemical reaction within. M. Ideas, beliefs, and traditions. Some adolescents question the socio-political system, economic status, and any matter of the fact stories of the land if why they are never yet solved. N. Gender issues. A question whether he or she is wrong because he acts like a girl and she all the way around behaves like a boy. O. Vocational pathing. At least aptitude, achievement, and IQ test is very important in school setting because it can give estimate as to whether the intelligence and non-intellectual functioning are placed. P. Personal choices. A teenager animated forms of behavior and sets of traits and characteristics from one another can be innate or inborn. Q. Perfectionism concern. Adolescents' concern is on the real area is focused to their self-concept. Factors of change. Changes can occur anytime during the adolescent stage. This developmental taboo seems disrupting one's interaction towards environment that brings out additional self-confusion. Although these changes, personal, physical, mental, social, spiritual, cultural, or political are not necessary to be rescued by parents or even doctor, but at least a little help of guidance. Orientation and proper education may reduce the confusion and disagreements. Growth, maturation, and development. Growth is part from the human body after undergoing a series of change to biological builds-up and developmental processes. According to Beltran 2005, growth spurt, which is the rapid acceleration in height and weight, signals the beginning of adolescence. In order to growing taller and heavier, the body assumes an adult-like appearance during the adolescent's growth spurt. The most noticeable changes are widening of the hips and female and broadening of the shoulders for male. Maturation is the readiness of an individual to accept and perform a certain task of learning. For instance, a 5-year-old is not expected to compute a calculus because his intelligence has not yet stored some data capable to analyze such bulk numerical processes. On the other hand, Beltran 2005 stated that maturation in the reproductive system occur at roughly the same time as the adolescent's growth spurt and follow predictable sequence of each sex. Development, lifetime, and continuous process. This is a genetic transmission of traits and characteristics. Physical and mental attributes were influenced by various changes and transformation to human behavior in the course of daily experience and encounters. Other changes like emotional and social qualities are also called behavioral sample of human nature over the period of time death by growth and maturation. Two types of maturation. Early maturer. This is an early maturation brought about the early onset of primary and second sex characteristic like menstruation at 11 years old the this is something to be amazed of, but is definitely a normal change of an individual whose biologically characteristic grows and develops very early in life. This maturation does not follow a pattern like what the majority way, and thus the individual is expected to experience menopause at the early age of 52 years old as well. Late maturer. This is a kind of maturation where an individual's biological builds up, grows, and develops very late, like menstruation at 17 years old. This is reverse explanation of the above example. The individual is expected also to menopause beyond 52 years old. In the book of McCoy and Webelsman 1986, it purports that the normal time for your menarche can depend a lot of your heritage. Looking at menarche's age of your mother's older sister, aunts, and other female relatives can give you a clue to your own possible starting age. This strongly suggests some genetic and hereditary disposition. In the case of layag, where some women have their inadequate menstruation like a weather condition as and factually the change when our menstruation recurs not after the normal cycle of 28 to 30 days but for 5 months or maybe 1 year. The best way to do instead of listening too much of layman's advices of this consult a hoe behind a specialist for women. This situation can be assigned a certificate disease, cervix, uterus, or hormonal abnormal condition where are maybe a relative issue of general physical concern. Right time to vote and participate in the national election. It sounds serious, but at the age of 18, every Filipino adolescent shall participate in the local and even the national election. For procedural purpose, the school encouraged them to inquire from the Commission of Election or COMELEC. Registration is the first step before someone can participate in the election, requiring the applicant to fill out some necessary forms, procure an identification card, and will then be qualified. Once this will be processed completely and is approved by COMELEC, one shall be able to vote as the Philippine Constitution has prepared a law on suffrage consist its guideline and as required. What is suffrage? Suffrage is the right and obligation to vote qualified citizen in the election of certain national and the local officer of the government and in the decision of public questions submitted to the people. Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, Article 5 stated that suffrage may be exercised by all citizens of the Philippines, not otherwise disqualified by law, who are at least 18 years of age and who shall have resident in the Philippines for at least 1 year, and in the place wherein they propose to vote for at least 6 months immediately a proceeding of election. No literacy, property, or other substantive requirements shall be imposed on the exercise of suffrage. De Leon and De Leon Jr. 2011. Voters registration requirement. There are certain requirements that a person must possess if he wants to apply for registration as a voter. These requirements are embodied in Section 9 Republic Act No. 8189 and reiterated by the Commission of Election in Section of COMELEC Resolution No. 9853. Qualification to register. For a person to be qualified applicant for registration, he or she must possess all of the following requirements. 1. A Filipino citizen who is not yet a registered voter. 2. At least 18 years of age. 3. A resident of Philippines for at least 1 year. 4. Residents of the place wherein he or she proposed to vote but at least 6 months immediately following the synchronized national, local, and ARMM regional election. And 5. Not otherwise disqualified by law. Disqualification to register. Complementary to the satisfaction of the first 4 requirements above, the non-possession of the following disqualification according to the Commission of Election in Section 10. A. Any person who has been sentenced by final judgment to suffer imprisonment for not less than 1 year, such as disability not having removed by plenary pardon or amnesty. B. Any person who has been adjudged by final judgment by a competent court or tribunal and having committed any crime involving disloyalty to the duly constitution government, such as rebellion, insurrection, violation of the firearm laws, or any crime against national security, unless restored to his or her full civil and political rights in accordance with law. And C. Instance of competent person are declared by competent authority unless subsequently declared by proper authority that such as person is no longer insane or incompetent. Documentary requirements. A person has to establish his or her identity that when he or she personally appear to file his or her application for registration before the Office of Election Officers or OCO. The following identification documents are the valid IDs accepted. First, employee's identification card or ID with the signature of the employer or authorized representation. 2. Post ID. 3. PWD discount ID. 4. Student's ID or library card signed by the school authority. 5. Senior citizen ID. 6. Driver license. 7. NBI clearance. 8. Passport. 9. SSS or GSIS ID. 10. Integrated Bar of the Philippines or IPB ID. 11. License issued by the Profession Regulatory Commission or PRC. 12. Certificate of Confirmation issued by the National Commission of Indigenous People or NCIP in case of member of ICCs or IPs. And 13. Any other valid ID. In the absence of any of the above mentioned identification documents, the application may be identified under oath by any registered voter of the precinct where he or she intends to be registered, or by any of his or her relatives within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity of affinity. No registered voter or relative shall be allowed to identify more than 3 applicants. Community tax certificate or cedula and PNP clearance shall not be honored as valid identification document for purpose of registration. If the applicant fails to establish his or her identity by any of the aforementioned method, documents, he or she shall not be issued of application form, nor his or her pre-accomplished application form be accepted. In the Search of Independence, in the book entitled Growing and Changing of McCoy and Webelsman 1986, it stated that independence is a gradual process that begins when you are in the toddler and really picks up of speed during puberty and adolescence. You begin doing more and more things for yourself, making many more of your own decisions. until by your late teen or early of the mid-20s you are on your way on completely. Added by McCoy and Wirbelsman 1986, that growing towards independence is not easy. If you are like most people, you have a lot of mixed feelings about it. You may want to be your own and yet need your parents. Moreover, good communication is the key to living with each other differences, seeing each other as a separated people, listening and caring about each other even when you do not agree. What is good communication is all about. Good communication isn't always easy. It takes time and effort and it takes a lot of mutual respect. You need to allow each other to make mistakes and have off days. It's not reasonable and expect your parents to be perfect or to change all their views or tastes to agree with yours, to completely devote their lives doing what you want to do. At the same time, you have a right to have some time and taste and dream of your own. Finally, McCoy and Wibbelsman 1986 stated that if you want, if you and your parents can begin to accept your growing separateness, if you can agree with Joyce and disagree with as much as gentleness and respect as possible as you are on your way to building a very special new relationship, you may have some difficult times. You may end having very different lives through and their dreams, but with love and communication, you can get through the tough time and final new joy. Find new joy in the being yourself and sharing our lives together. Alport's 8 stages of self-proprium development. In an article of Gautam 2008, 8 stated that in the subject of personality, it would be instructive to note the contribution of Gordon Allport's 1897 to 1968 where he has had a seminal influence. Introduced straight but was stimulationally a believer in the uniqueness of an individual and wholeness of personality. His identified adjectives, among others, were subjected to factor analysis by Goldberg, and that never caught up was the term proprium he introduced for herself. However, some of these concepts for self have stood the test of time. This is about the development stages by which the self or unifying personal meaning construct a personal develops. Most of the other development stages, theories like Leubinger 1978 ego development theory, this too follows an 8-stage unfolding of self. First, the self or the sense of bodily self, which is a sense of one's own body, including bodily sensation, attests to one's existence and therefore remains a lifelong anchor for self-awareness. 2. The sense of self-identity, which is the second aspect of proprium is self-identity. This is most evident when the child, through acquiring language, recognizes himself as a distinct and constant point of reference. 3. The sense of self-esteem or pride, which is an individual evaluation of himself and the urge to want to do everything for oneself and take all the credit. The sense of self-extension occurs during the 3rd year of life, which stated that even though some things are not inside my physical body, they are still very much part of one's life. 5. The self-image or how others view me is another aspect of selfhood that emerges during childhood. 6. The sense of self as a rational Cooper occurs between the age of 6 and 12 in which the child begins to realize fully that he has the rational capacity to find solutions to life problems so that they can cope effectively with reality demands. 7. Appropriate striving, which Alport believed to be the core problem for the adolescents. It is the selection of the occupation or other life goal. The adolescents knows that their future must follow a plan, and in the sense they makes them lose their childhood. 8. Self as an hour. The hour thinking agent rides on top of them. The thinker is different from his or her thought. In Alport stands, contrary to William James, who ridiculously maintains that the thought themselves as the thinker. Note that this concept of self is more in cognitive term, while Jovinger 1976 is more on psychoanalytical term. Another alternative description of the same stages is presented here. Sense of body develops in the first 2 years of life. We have one. We feel its closeness, its warmth. It has boundaries that pains and injury, touch and movements make us aware of. Alport had a favorite demonstration of this aspect of self. Im- Imagine spitting salivia in a cup and then drinking it down. What's the problem? It's the same stuff you swallow all day long. But of course, it has gone out from your bodily self and become thereby foreign to you. Self-identity also develops in the first 2 years. There comes a point where we recognize ourselves as continuing, as having past, present, and future. We see ourselves as individual entities, separate and different from others. We even have a name. Will you be the same person when you wake up tomorrow? Of course, we can take that continuity for granted. Self-esteem develops between 2 and 4 years old. There also comes a time when you recognize that we have value. To other aspect to ourselves, this is especially tied to continuing development of our competences. This, for all ports, it was the anal stage is really all about. Self-extension develops between 4 and 6. Certain things, people, and events around us also came to the thought of as a central of warmth, essential to my existence. Mine is very close to me. Some people define themselves in terms of their parents' spouse or children, their clan, gang, community, college, or nation. Some find identity in the place, my house, my hometown. When my child does something wrong, why do I feel like they just punch me? Self-image also develop between 4 and 6. This is the looking glass self, the me as the others see me. This is the impression I make on others. May I look my social esteem or status, including my sexual identity. It is the beginning of what conscience, ideal self, and persona. Rational coping is learned predominantly in the 6 years from 6 to 12. The child begins to develop his or her ability to deal with life problems rationally and effectively. This is analogous to erection industry. Proper thriving does not usually begin till after 12 years old. This is myself as goal, ideal plans, vocation, calling, a sense of direction, a sense of purpose. The culmination of proper striving according to Alport is the ability to say that I am the proprietor of my life, the owner and operator. Significance of knowing yourself. Knowing thyself was a famous axiom according to the Greek philosopher, where emphasis was more of well-balanced living, or a mastered way of life that brings satisfaction and happiness. There are people who, despite inferior feelings and inadequacies, still positively approach life is a most subtle and resident way. There are those who stand up straight and strong when the storm surge in life but keep going. To be precise, they are a sort of master on their boats that knows where to go when the tides beat in all sorts of direction, and sure to succeed in another roundabout. Thomas Edison deeply challenged us through his words. I will not say I failed for 1,000 times. I will say I discovered that there are 1,000 ways that I can cause failure. True. Because Steve Bikara once said, understanding your boundaries is the first step toward self-improvement. Similarly, Lordy was right after saying, if you know yourself, you will not be harmed by what is said about you. But the next question is, how far have you gone through knowing yourselves other than those determined people? Those are explained completely in the famous article of Dawson, 1976, stressed that knowing ourselves is difficult because we are such complicated beings. But more likely it seems difficult because we tend to be afraid of what we shall find if we try to see ourselves as we really are. Many people spend a good part of their lives avoiding having to face up to themselves. Self-image. Self-image is one's perception of identifying the self. It may be false self-image in the course of over-exaggeration and over-self-assessment. If one of one's skills then engage into something beyond one's personal ability. Sometimes there are people who believe to their own lies and convinced to self-hypnotism. At times, one believes his herself to be of fit and possess the kind of skills. He or she assessed out of consciousness and seem has mastered everything. However, it all just excited inside his or her mind and considered as false image. Our limitations are truly a buffer. It's a hut whenever we feel we are running out of motivational fuel for a certain task in life that we are capable of. A need to listen from others' comment and criticism can also be a big help for us to cross-check some pre-post self-image. Sex and gender differences, gender roles, and issues. What is difference, sex, and gender? In the Book of Witten 2001 discussed that sex refers to the biologically based categories of female and male. In contrast, gender refers to culturally constructed distinction between femininity and masculinity. While gender differences are actual disparities between the sexes in typical behavior of average ability. In addition, Welton 2001 stressed that a vast research literature shows that gender differences are shaped by socialization process, operant conditioning differences. Families, school, and the media are among the main source of gender role socialization. Families. A great deal of gender role socialization takes place in the home. Review of research by Lighton of Romney 1991 suggests that parents do not treat girls and boys as different as one might expect. But there are disparities. Lat and Maluso 1993, Turner and Gerval 1995. Schools. Schools and teachers clearly contribute to the socialization of gender roles. The books that children use in learning to read can influence their ideas about what is suitable behavior for males and females. Oxcam, Kaufman, and Walter Bick, 1996. Preschool and grade school teachers frequently reward sex-appropriate behavior in their pupils. Rubble and Marty, 1998. Interestingly, teachers tend to pay greater attention for males, helping them, praising them, and scolding them more than females. Sadker and Sadker, 1994. As youngsters progress through the school system, they are often channeled in career direction considered appropriate for their sex. Media. Television is another source of gender role socialization. Lucky Alexka, 1995. Television shows how traditionally despective men and women in highly stereotypic ways. Signorelli and Bacu, 1999. Zillman, Bryan, and Justo 1995. Women are often portrayed as submissive, passive, and emotional. Men are more likely to be portrayed as independent, assertive, and competent. Another form of gender bias in television is its inordinate emphasis on physical attractiveness in women. Men on television may or may not be good looking, but the vast majority of women are young, attractive, and sexy. Davis 1990. The videos and commercials on MTV frequently portray women and men as sex objects, and these portrayals appear to influence viewers' attitude about sexual conduct. Hansen and Hansen 1988. Signorile 1993 as Wittin 2001 stressed in his book Psychology, Themes, and Variation. This reality in gender psychiatry issue gained a negative reaction to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, or LGBT community, and even ignited several arguments and debates from a common tao. But conforming or not to this new gender assignment, the necessary even-handed education is to consider one another regardless what gender one's belong. If the third gender identity is one chooses to be, is a matter of fact choice. However, if the expert call it with lack of identity and disorder, to what extent a certain behavior called abnormal? According to Haley, 2004, citing the DSM authors that there is no standard for being normal and abnormal in homosexuality. However, there are four criteria to consider. First, statistical frequency. Second, personal distress. Third, maladaptiveness. Fourth, deviation from social norm. Differences between gay and homosexual. With the recent views regarding what homosexual and gays means was well cited in the book of Haley 2004 entitled 101 Frequently Asked Questions About Homosexuality, saying, not all homosexual think of or classifying themselves as gay, a term with decidedly sociopolitical overtones, one that is as much about identifying oneself as a member of a community than identifying oneself by social orientation. According to Haley, this individual would never be comfortable claiming a gay identity. The ultimate rule of thumb: all gays are homosexual, but not all homosexuals choose to identify themselves as gay. Another helpful distinction is that those who seek to walk away from homosexuality can be referred to as non-gay homosexuals. What is lesbianism? It is a female homosexual. The gay component of lesbian is more of an emotional aspect that they choose to commit with same-sex individual just to emote their feelings of being alone and the need to talk to someone who can understand them, someone who can relate. This emotional intimacy is more relevant than with sexual engagement.